I'm racing half marathon today. It is, as far as I'm aware, the third Hilliest road half course in the country. It has 530 metres of elevation gain, and here is the course profile. The joke locally is that it is a fell race disguised as a road race. And I'm looking forward to running it, to be honest. Well, I'm looking forward to racing it. I will be racing it. Not advisable, given where I am in my training block and the fatigue currently sitting in my legs, but I think it will be fun to properly race it. So I'm gonna. The course profile suits me quite well. There are, as you probably saw, a couple of sections with very long, steep uphills, which is my jam. So I want to see how much damage I can do to the field on the uphills. That's sort of what we're testing today. All right, folks, I'm gonna go eat my Belgian buns and drink coffee and wait for my lift, and I'll catch you when I'm in here. Almost forgot to go over the race day shoe for today. We're doing Topo Spectre 2s. I have temporarily given up trying to use carbon plated shoes for longer road stuff because there isn't an option for me, really. I need a wide toe box, and the Ultras, for whatever reason, just aren't cutting it. So we're going back to Topos. These are just Piba foam, so there's no carbon plate in these, but they should be pretty good. I've done one run in them and they've been all right. They felt comfy. So I'm hopeful that these will be a good shoe for longer road stuff for my weird Smeagol feet. And I'll let you know afterwards how I get on. All right. Got my number, doing my warm up. The start organisation area seems really, really nice. I think this is the nice thing about some of these smaller races. It just feels often very smooth. There's a record number of sign-ups for this race this year, I believe, and the number pickup area is still no long queues or anything. Just gonna give myself a couple of K jog and then maybe do 3 or 4 minutes of threshold-ish pace. Wake my legs up a little bit. I've sort of accidentally done a mini taper into this. I say accidentally. I knew this was probably going to be fairly hard on my legs, so I didn't want to do a completely normal training week. So I front loaded the week a little bit more than normal, and I didn't do my usual Thursday morning hill workout, and then I did a bit less mileage on Friday and yesterday, and that actually seems to have kind of been a pretty effective mini taper, because I'd still like to put a good effort in today, but I've just got to be a bit logical about the overall impact on training and keeping things within a manageable framework. I'm going to stop yapping at you now and just get on with my warm up. Next time you see me should be at the start line.
And now we're going to walk you up to the start once we've had your race briefing. So we're just waiting for our race director, Hayden, and then he'll give you your final race instructions. Have a good one, everybody. Let's get to the start.
So they gave us a race briefing and then everybody walks up to the actual start, which I think worked quite well because it meant everybody could kind of spread out and settle into where they wanted to be before the race actually set off. And we are away. So going into this, I felt that a 1:45 would probably be a really good day on this course, and looking at last year's results, that would have snuck me onto the podium. However, this year the field is much deeper. There are a lot more people doing this race than there have been in previous years, so there's pretty much no chance of me sneaking onto the podium at all, but we're just going to see how close we can get to a 1:45 anyway. The initial part of the route takes us through the village. It's a very pretty village, and there were various spectators out on the course cheering everyone on, which is really nice to see. There's a bit of uphill in this first kilometre, and it's a fairly sharp one,
So I had started off quite quickly, but went through the first kilometre in a 4:51 with 31 metres of elevation gain in this kilometre. This lady ahead of me in the Totley AC vest ended up coming 7th female overall and first in her category. She's an F50 runner, so just some mad depth really around the Sheffield and Peak District area locally. There's some very fast runners all the way through the age groups. We got a little bit of downhill there, but now the first big uphill starts. I felt pretty strong here. I felt like I was moving fairly well. Didn't really feel that much fatigue in my legs at this stage. And just coming up on the right here we have, I believe, the chairperson of Steel City Striders and one of her friends yelling some amazing levels of support. They appeared at several points on the course. And the lady in front of me at the minute is someone I have run in races, I won't say against, she is faster than me, so I don't normally see her for very long, and I knew I was going to lose her as the race went on, so I was just trying to see how long I could hang on to her for, and then around this point of the race, unfortunately, I started to get a stitch, which was incredibly annoying. As you can see, she's long gone now. I had to slow down quite a bit just to do some damage limitation, which was just really annoying. This was a bit of the course where I could have cruised for a bit and banked some good time, but I had to slow down so I didn't just get slammed with a crippling stitch for the rest of the race. It was the right thing to do. Slowing down here made sure I could carry on running at a reasonable pace for most of the rest of the race, but it was irritating, and yeah, there were a few people that I thought I might have been able to hang on to for a little bit longer who just got away from me as we went through this stretch. Once we're past the Barrel Inn, we then start to make our way down towards Abney, and I was beginning to get a bit of control on the stitch at this stage. There's a dark peaker on the left there, cheering people on. It was nice to see just people randomly out on the course who had like cycled or hiked up to just cheer people on. But I'm starting to get some control on the stitch. It's still there. I don't think it's going away at this stage, and I'm just accepting that I'm going to have to live with it kind of hovering there ominously, probably for the rest of the race. But it doesn't seem to be getting worse. It seems to have settled down. So this happens often when I'm racing longer stuff and I get a stitch. If I can run through it and control it initially, then it seems to not actually then get much worse once I've kind of got it under control. So it's there, it's annoying, but it's not stopping me from running and it's not affecting my breathing at this point, so whatever. Just gonna do what I can, try and get as much pace as possible where I can. The weather has been much sunnier than the forecast promised. We were promised overcast skies and some light rain showers basically all day, but I guess not. However, the days have been pretty cold lately, so there was a bit of wind and the course was cool enough. And here I am getting overtaken by a man wearing a gilet, so that's good for my self-esteem. Gilet man is just pulling away from me quite steadily on this section, but I'm pretty sure I can get him again when we get to the uphills. This lass in the Striders shirt with the race pack that we keep seeing, we were kind of back and forth a lot through most of the race. She's clearly better on the downhills and flats than me, and I'm clearly better on the uphills, so we just kept kind of overtaking each other at various points. And here I'm getting overtaken by a man who is holding his phone in his hand. Again, good for my self-esteem.
Cheers.
I did get overtaken by various people on the downhill sections and in some cases the flat sections, which I was expecting. Downhills are my weaker points, but as we can see, we're on a little bit of a slope here and I make quite a lot of ground up on the people in front of me, even with this not very long section of uphill. I'm just much stronger going uphill than I am doing anything else, so that always happens in races. I do have to apologise for the footage being so shaky. I haven't really figured out how to get the settings right on the camera necessarily yet, so playing around with that a bit more still, and obviously trying to run hard downhill is not really conducive to stable camera footage. And would you believe it or not, this has already been stabilised, so this is about as good as I could get it, unfortunately. We've got a little section of muddy path here, which was exciting after so much tarmac, but we've got to keep the interest alive. And here we are going into the second uphill. People were really struggling here. I was struggling here, which again wasn't unexpected. This is quite an aggressive uphill after you've just had like 7 kilometers of downhill. So it's a bit of a shock to the legs to then do this. So quite a lot of people walking. I did overtake a lot of people on this section. Not as many as had overtaken me on the downhill, unfortunately, which again is always the way of it. People can make up more time on me on the downhills than I can make on them on the uphills. But overtaking quite a few people, and looking back at this footage, it really feels like I'm charging up this hill. At the time, I felt like I was crawling, and my average pace dropped at some points to like 7:18 a kilometre, briefly, not for the whole kilometre. So looking back and seeing how quickly I'm overtaking some of these people, it does make it look faster than it felt at the time. Hey, and we've caught back up with Gilet Man, and this Buxton AC Vest bloke in front of us is someone else we kept seeing repeatedly throughout the course, because he was obviously better on the downhills than I was, but I was better on the uphills. And here's another guy that overtook us earlier who I've managed to catch back up to just as we're going into a section that really lulls you into a false sense of security, because it does flatten back out again for a bit, and I was just trying to hammer the pace as much as possible along here because my legs felt okay. I'd slowed down quite a lot on that hill, but my legs had a reasonable amount of energy in them. I've been taking on my fuel well, so along this section I was feeling pretty good, and I was able to keep up a reasonable pace for a lot of this bit here. So I just was trying to roll with it as much as possible, and use this section as much as I could. And then we got to here, and I remembered that there was still more uphill to come. A little bit soul destroying, because this is, again, it's not as steep as the first section, but it's quite long. So I was just, again, doing my best. I did overtake a few more people along here because, yeah, I think other people had just kind of had their souls decimated upon arriving at the bottom of this, like, last bit of uphill. Here's the bloke with the guitar who was earlier in the course again. And just a huge relief to kind of get to this bit and realise that I didn't have any more uphill left to do, and I could kind of relax into this last section of downhill down into the village. So we're back to the super shaky footage now. I was doing my best to absolutely bomb this downhill. As I said, downhills are not my strong suit. I have got better at them, but there's still something I haven't really like fully put together and fully figured out. I'm definitely not a natural downhill runner at all, which is awkward when most of the races I do have a lot of uphill and also a lot of downhill. So I'm trying to find that flow state and trying to let my legs do their thing. I know I might as well just use whatever gas I've got left at this stage. There's not really any point in holding much back. I know I've got the rest of this downhill into the village, and then it will flatten out through the village to get to the finish. And I might as well just try and ride this as much as possible. I was also aware at this stage that a 1:45 on the clock wasn't going to happen, which I wasn't that cut up about. Like, a 1:45 would have been a really, really good day, and I had 75 kilometres in my legs from the rest of the week, so this was always just a bit of a fitness test to kind of get a gauge of where I'm at. Coming into the last section here, this is really well marked out and marshalled, really smoothly run, so very clear where you needed to go, which is great at the end of a race when your brain's not really working. So on the right here we see the Strider's Lass, overtaking us again. She was so strong on this overtake that I just thought, all right, she's gone. I don't think I've got gas to keep up with her. So I just did my best to like use the momentum of her going past to try and pick up a bit of speed. But then I did catch back up with her, so I don't know whether she just pushed a bit too early maybe, and then didn't have the legs to keep it going. So overtook her again, and I assumed she was like on my shoulder and chasing me really closely, but actually it was this guy coming past, and I was still just assuming she was right behind me, That bloke absolutely whizzes past, don't know what he was on. And again, assuming she's right behind me, I want to see if I can get place as highly as possible, and I managed to come across the line in 14th female, and I think I was 6th in the FSEN age category, which I was pretty happy with. Just going to run through a quick race recap and event review, I suppose. Really well organised event, lovely event to take part in. I know the course profile is intimidating, and 530 metres of elevation gain is a lot, but it is a very, very nice race, and they do have the opportunity for people to walk it if they start much earlier than the runners. So it's a pretty inclusive event as well. Bib pickup was seamless. There weren't really any queues, despite the fact we've been told to try and get there in a reasonable time frame to avoid queues. There weren't any. There were enough toilets around the village to cater for people's needs. The backdrop seemed like it was running pretty smoothly, and the course was really well marshalled, and there were several water stations at various points, as you saw in the footage. So I'd say it's about as accessible as a half marathon with 530 metres of elevation gain can be. I will absolutely do this event again. In terms of how my race went, I'm pretty happy with how I ran it. Without the stitch, I think it would have easily been a 1:45. So that's annoying. I'm still problem solving the stitch thing. I'm confused as to why it happened yesterday. I'm at the wrong point in my hormonal cycle for stitches to be such a big problem. Normally it's just worse in my luteal phase, or like while the period is happening. So for it to kick in that badly when I'm not in either of those points of the cycle is odd. Don't know what's going on there. Maybe I need to preload on electrolytes more. Maybe I drank some fluid too close to the start of the race. There's any number of things it could be, so I'm still troubleshooting that really. And maybe I'll never fully get to the bottom of it. However, I felt like I managed it really well. It was irritating that I had to back off the pace, but in doing that, I was able to run the rest of the race on pace. So if I hadn't have had the stitch, I wouldn't have had to hold back to kind of as kilometre 4 was coming up, and I think it was, yeah, I had about 3 kilometres where the stitch was relatively bad, and I had to just try and relax and run a bit slower. So irritating, but I'm glad that I was able to identify the issue, manage it in the moment, and then that facilitated me running the rest of the race in a way that I was pretty happy with. My legs did feel like they were conking out a bit on that second chunk of uphill, which wasn't really a surprise. Like, I've got the fatigue of 5 weeks of 100 kilometres sat in my legs basically, and I hadn't done a full taper into this, so yeah, feeling a bit rough on the second very aggressive uphill after 7 kilometres of downhill running. Not really a surprise, so again, I'm not going to worry too much about that. It's not a shock. I did have a look at what the grade adjusted pace conversions for my finish time might be on a flat course. Obviously you have to take grade adjusted pace with a grain of salt, but I feel it can be fun to look at, and it can give you an indicator of where your fitness is at for flat courses, because obviously it's difficult to specifically measure my fitness when I'm running hilly stuff all the time, and at the moment I've just got a sprinkling of 5Ks to give me an idea of where my flat ground fitness is. So using the grade adjusted pace, it gives me a vague idea of where my half marathon fitness might be if I were to run a flat half. Strava's grade adjusted pace I think is way off the mark. It had me at a 1:38 grade adjusted pace for a flat course, which seems absurd. I don't think I could run a 138 flat at the minute, but grade adjusted pace on a different calculator I used suggested that the equivalent time on a flat course would be more like 1:40:33, which I think seems more logical, and that would still be a minute faster than my PB from North Links. So happy days as a fitness indicator. I think it was a good outing. I'm now gonna just take the rest of the week as it comes. My legs have actually felt all right today. I have been out for a 5k easy jog this morning. Some DOMs in my quads and my glutes, but everything else feels fine, to be honest. That might get worse as the day goes on. It might feel worse tomorrow, but I'm just gonna keep moving and I'll do my runs as I feel I need to. So at the minute, I've got a question mark on whether I'm doing a workout tomorrow. I will probably decide in the morning whether that's a good idea or not. But we keep moving forward, keep building. We've got, what, another 6 weeks? 5 weeks until I start tapering for the British Fell Champs. So hopefully another 5 weeks of just solid consistency. I've got a few shorter races sprinkled in there that I'm probably just going to use in place of workouts. And then we'll be tapering for Pen of Fan. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.